Hello there, and welcome back to Series of Seven. Series of Seven is the video series where we look at fiction and see how it correlates with reality. Does any of the science that we hear about in the fiction, books, movies, plays actually line up with true science that could possibly happen? And this is something that we are really needing to look at, you guys, because in the day of information warfare, fiction and nonfiction is both very censored. And many people can't even talk about true conspiracies that are actually happening in real time because they are censored. But as Benjamin Franklin explains thoroughly in his autobiography, if you call something satire, you can no longer be charged with libel. So a lot of people tell us the truth, even with satire websites, and they can't be sued because if you say it's a joke, no one can sue you. And that's kind of what we're seeing in real life with at least true narratives. So we have to look at fiction because all the fiction is telling us exactly the same thing. Today, we are going to be looking at 3 different novels that were turned into movies and series and plays, but we are looking at Flowers for Algernon, Idiocracy, and Limitless. Okay. Flowers for Algernon is an amazing story that I first heard about when I was 7 years old. On my 7th birthday, Rugrats made an episode about this for children to understand. On my 14th birthday, I was studying Shakespeare, and we had to find books with a Shakespeare type plot. And I chose Flowers for Algernon. It was a play that we had to read through. And then when I was 21, I had the opportunity to write about, when I was 21, that same year, the Hallmark movie version of Flowers for Algernon came out. And then when I was 28, I was like, oh my gosh, I came across the book on Audible and I listened to Flowers for Algernon. So every 7 years, this dang book has come for me. Okay. Describes his book is until he was 32, Charlie Gordon, gentle, amiable, and oddly engaging, had lived in a kind of mental twilight. He knew knowledge was important and he had learned to read and write after a fashion, but he knew he wasn't nearly as bright as most people around him. His coworkers in his bakery would insult him daily without him even noticing their intentions. All of this held him back. Not too many people close to Charlie would relate to him. There was even a white mouse named Algernon who had outsmarted Charlie in many ways, but a remarkable operation had been performed on Algernon, and now Algernon the mouse was a genius among mice. Suppose Charlie underwent the same operation. Okay. Probably the easiest thing for anyone to watch is the 1.5 hour long version of the Hallmark movie covering this, or even the 30-minute Rugrats episode, which came out on my 7th birthday, by the way, which is weird. Anyway, they do a cute spin on this same exact storyline, and it's made for kids. It's really cute. But basically, you follow through the journey of a severely, hold on, how do I stop this here? So it's Flowers for Algernon. You follow Charlie going from a state of severe mental retardation state where he doesn't understand everything that everyone else understands around him. He is able to carry a little part-time job at a bakery. He doesn't understand that people make fun of him. He doesn't understand jokes. He doesn't understand what it is that people around him seem to get, but he doesn't. He just thinks knowledge is something unattainable to him. So he undergoes this experimental treatment, and you follow the writings, the journal entries of Charlie through his journey of reversing this mental retardation. Now, the way they explain it is an operation. Now, every sign and symptom Charlie showed to be part of his mental illness is weirdly the same things that we're dealing with today with autism, dementia, even ADHD cases. And it's really funny that those three diseases all share like 90% of the same symptoms. Those three diseases are constantly misdiagnosed. Our medical system is not designed this way, but basically, if you go to 10 or 20 different doctors and tell each of them the same symptoms, have each of them look at the same blood work, and all come up with a diagnosis, you're going to have three different diagnoses. They're telling people, oh, your ADHD is actually early dementia. Oh, your ADHD is actually autism. Oh, your autism is actually ADHD. Like they don't know what they're talking about, because what we're really dealing with is heavy metal and parasite poisonings. This is why it's important to know of what the military was doing to our society in the 60s. And this book was written in the 60s, shortly after JFK got shot in the head. And shortly after Dwight Eisenhower was like, yo, the military industrial complex is making you all into slaves by putting retardants in your water supply, in your shots. And now they are going to make a really big problem. So the people of the 60s are going to be the first 5 years of the first time we've ever been using smallpox vaccines. So the 60s is a really important time frame to understand that these mental illnesses started ramping up. The same things that Charlie is showing pre-operation are the same things that so many more people, a bigger percentage of our society now is showing than it was in the 60s. We are all Charlies in some instances. So as someone who was heavily parasitically damaged and heavy metal poisoned through the use of early vaccines in the 1980s, late 1980s, early 1990s was the first set of the really big vaccines given to infants at birth, with 72 antigens shots being utilized. So ever since then, we've been seeing a lot of autism cases pop up, and people think that they know what vaccines do when they come out. No, they're all experimental. This is the first time you gave 72 antigens to babies in the late 80s, early 90s. So now that it's 32, 33 years later, guess what? Those babies are all either ADHD or autism spectrum, which means, yes, the shots given then are now showing proof that the early 90s baby shots, called immunizations, started giving autism. And the reason they don't want to give out the autism diagnosis is because it would prove that anyone under like 34 is more prone to autism, because anyone under 34 got the shots that made people into zombies. So all of this research is really brand new. This is brand new evidence to an experimental drug that was done 34 years ago. We're barely figuring out what it does now. So you follow this journal of this mental, I don't even know what they call him. You get to see the way he thinks in his journal. So you can kind of gauge where his literacy is at. You can gauge where his thoughts go when he tries to put things together, when he's doing psychology check-ins. He doesn't even understand that there are shapes in the test that he's supposed to look at. He just sees black ink blobs. So he can't even conceptualize or use his imagination, which are all different parts of the brain. And then you do see him start to progress with knowledge, and you see him kind of going through puberty almost in a way, in a matter of like 3 months, because he's quickly learning a lot of stuff. So it's like watching a child go from a 9-year-old mentality to 13, 14, 17, 18, and then he gets rambunctious and he gets mad, just like teenagers and early adults do, and they kind of rebel. But while he's doing this, he's realizing that his mouse friend, who's on this journey with him, because the mouse also had the operation, the mouse starts to regress and go back to his old ways. And he's no longer as smart as he was. He can no longer figure out the maze quickly. And Charlie realizes, like, oh my goodness, if the mouse is regressing, that means I'm going to regress too. And during all this, he's having blackouts, and the operation was not very good, with long-term stability, basically. So sure enough, you do start to see Algernon regressed. Charlie is regressing. You see it in his words, you see it in his works. And then at the end, he goes back to his pre-operation state. And which one do I want to talk about next? This is very similar to another movie. I haven't seen the series, but I don't have time. The movie is Limitless. In the movie Limitless, he is a very, very smart gentleman we're following, but he is not ambitious. He, again, has a bunch of symptoms of autism, ADHD, dementia.
Hello there. Quick message from post-production Lexi. This is a good place to cut me off because right now I'm about to explain how retardation does not mean you are stupid, okay? Retardation simply means you are being hindered from a natural process, okay? And Limitless is a wonderful explanation of how someone extremely smart, actually, is still suffering from all the same symptoms of many different types of mental illness, all caused by parasites and heavy metals, that always get intertwined when they're talked about. For example, ADHD, autism, dementia, and Alzheimer's all have like 90% of the same exact symptoms. So I understand, like, this isn't the world we live in, but if you could go to your doctor and, go to 20 different doctors, have 20 different doctors look at your same blood results with your same symptoms, you will get more than 3 different diagnoses. There are 12 million misdiagnoses per year. And basically why this is important to know is because the reason why it's not confirmed proof yet that vaccines have caused all of this vaccine damage is because we started giving children 72 antigen shots in the early 90s. That's the first wave of kids who really got hit heavy with these immunization series given to children. I am the very first generation. Babies born in like 88, 89, 90 are going to be the very first test subjects for that experimental shot 30 some years ago. So now that we're all turning 33 and we all have autism or early dementia or ADHD, they're all the same exact thing. If you go to a different doctor, he'll tell you you have something different. They all are healed with antiparasitics. I have seen literally all 3 of those diagnoses churn around. And you can do it safely. All the doctors say it's only dangerous. And then you have millionaires only pushing dangerous versions of antiparasitics. So those get famous before safe ones do. And then people get hurt. And it's a very controlled game, but basically I have a whole link tree that explains my process of doing this and many other, I'm really just going over clinical studies of things we know that already work that have been suppressed. And why this is important to know of these cures. They're usually called a vaccine reversal. And a lot of people I notice didn't vaccinate their kids and yay. But here's the problem. The way vaccines work is they shed. Different people in the community call it different things. I don't really care what you call them, but it's this basic idea that we know we can see spike proteins or pyrons or some people say nanobots. You can observe proteins coming off of vaccinated individuals with the vaccine. People have noticed vaccine ingredients in food, in mosquito larvae. So there's many different ways we can be vaccinated, and you would never be given a vaccine from your doctor. You could be in a classroom with 10 unvaccinated kids, 20 vaccinated kids, and now you're vaccinated because you're sitting in a petri dish of spike proteins. You might not be vaccinated, but everyone at your office is vaccinated. So now, by proxy, you're vaccinated because that's how vaccine shedding works. Not to mention, they're putting vaccines in other stuff besides shots. So a lot of people don't think they're vaccine damaged and don't do the things that we should all be doing because we are all heavy metal and parasite damaged. And yes, there are some really, really cool things like on Limitless where the human brain, the human body can like reroute itself. And this is called neurodivergent. And it's really, really cool. Um, if the biowarfare from these evil billionaires was trying to be used on us to literally retard the human species into going into an obedient state, because it's very well known that Asperger people are so, they follow the rules. They stick to the rules. It doesn't matter if the rules are unconstitutional. If there's a law that says that you need this and this and this to drive, but the Constitution says the right to drive is open for every man and there should be no permits to it, they don't care that the constitutional law is correct. They just care that a fake law written by maritime statutes is telling them something unconstitutional, and they will become a self-policing force. And if anyone has ever seen Rain Man, you cannot change the mind of people who cannot rationalize when they hear a bit of information like a law and they don't want to break rules. So it's really well known that Asperger's follow rules, and this is what they want to make all of us. They want to make us all rule followers and tattletales, and this is why they do this route of hindrance, which is heavy metal and parasite poisoning. But they don't want to tell anyone and confirm all these millions of cases of autism of people between, under 33 years old, because the second they do that, they're going to confirm that, yes, it was vaccines that caused autism. So that's why they don't give out autism diagnosis, even if it is. So that's just things that you have to keep in mind. I'm trying to think of what else. No, that's pretty much all I can think of I didn't really cover. So back to me talking about Limitless.
In the movie Limitless, he is a very, very smart gentleman we're following, but he is not ambitious. He, again, has a bunch of symptoms of autism, ADHD, dementia, where they live in filth or squalor, because when you have ADHD and dementia, you can't organize anything. So that's why your thoughts are scattered. That's why your house is a pigsty and kind of like left in a state, because a clean house is a clean mind. So a lot of autistic people are either extremely, extremely, extremely organized and clean, or for the most part, most people are very unorganized, just disarray, untidy. And this is like a huge sign of dementia and Alzheimer's. So this is where the state of being that we find Bradley Cooper's character on Limitless. Very smart, very well read, but just a bum that sits around his house and doesn't get to writing, doesn't get to doing any of his stuff. And then he meets an old friend. The old friend says, here's an experimental drug, take it. And then Bradley Cooper does, and his entire life just lights up. And he can have memory recall, which is the opposite of dementia. He can now recall any book he's ever read in life, any story, anything he's ever witnessed. He can just like have a quick memory recall. He goes into his house and he's like, ew, I cannot live in this. And he cleans up, he gets rid of stuff. And then he puts his house in order. And then once his house is in order, he can finally think of a million things to write about. So he finishes his book all in one afternoon, which is very much what you do on detox to reverse Alzheimer's and autism. I did it. I've been teaching people how to do it for years now. And we go through doctors who have already done the research on different oxidizers. You remove the heavy metals and bugs that cause these problems, and then you get rid of the problem altogether. And the coolest thing is, I can totally attest, not only do new gifts come online when you do these, but your DNA unlocks if your pineal gland is calcified with fluoride. Good thing oxidizers and things we get made fun of that decalcify aquariums, they also decalcify your pineal gland. So you can like have new things that you never got before. And this is a very big part of cleansing. And then, okay, so in Limitless, he's taking this pill, he's super smart, and it wears off. So he takes another one and it's not lasting as long, and he's having blackouts just like Charlie did. And he starts like regressing. He almost starts dying. The people who took the pill before him are all like dying. They're not doing well. And then at the end of the movie, you figure out he's found another way to keep his consciousness spiked without taking the pills. So they don't tell us what it is in the movie. I haven't watched the series. Okay. And then Idiocracy. Okay, let's talk about, I'm going to show you my screen. Okay, so Idiocracy is a wonderful movie that really describes how the entire human race is being made dumber through advertisements and the fact they're not even drinking the water they should be drinking. So it explains the very opening scene, and I believe the very first trailer on YouTube for Idiocracy explains how smart people are going to most likely get married, wait to have children, realize, hey, I'm 32 and I'm finally able to settle down and have a child now that I can afford to have a child, now that I'm in a good place with my husband and we are friends and we know everything about each other and we're not just rushing into a relationship because we have a child. We actually like each other and we're on the same page with a bunch of our morals. So we feel like it's now time to raise a child. Well, by the time you're 32, you are you have enough parasites in you to take away your fertility. And yes, parasites do cause infertility. They also cause fertility. So if you know which ones do which, you can give certain areas of the country parasites in injections that have certain parasites to cause certain groups to have more babies, probably at 16, that will go to the fetus of abortion slave trade. Or you can give some parts of society that probably live under good Christian and Judaism values and good whole homes with both parents. You can give all those kids bugs that will make them infertile. It's great. And that's pretty much what Bill Gates is doing. It's called eugenics. And that is the whole problem with vaccines. So now you have a big group of people who cannot get pregnant unless they do IVF because everyone is infertile now. Yay, great. And that is happening on Idiocracy. So by the time smart people go to have kids when they're ready and the dad's going to stay along, you're in the full family unit is going good. You're not going to have as many smart people. Yes, of course, there's people who got pregnant at 20 and they got their shit together and now they're with happy people and the kids don't have any mental disorders and no anxiety. Of course, you have those people. I'm not talking about the whole, but for the most part, this is what ended up happening ever since the 60s. You have the people who are willing to have kids at a young age and have kids for the government and be wards of the state, basically getting money for the children they do have. And many people do have kids upwards of 5 or 6 with one or 3 mommies and different daddies that they go to every weekend. And those people are going to be at a different caliber with their knowledge and learning and etiquette than the people who might have been raised by people who waited till they were in the 30s instead of had kids in the teens. Of course, that's not the rule for everyone. I'm sure you're a great mom and I'm sure you had your kids early. And yes, I know there are outliers, but I'm talking about the entire world. Okay, so macro, not micro. This did actually end up happening. So the very first 2 minutes of Idiocracy, I suggest everyone to see. And it is available online just on YouTube if you look up Idiocracy. And it explains very well how we find the main character on Idiocracy. He's a below average cadet soldier, not the kind of soldier that wants to move up, just the kind of soldier who wants to have TRICARE and be taken care of. The military is wonderful at like mafia tactics. They'll take care of you if you work for them. That's very much the military. They'll take care of you if you work for them. You'll just leave with 3 mental illnesses and busted rotator cuffs, and you probably have so much calcification from vaccines that you probably are calcifying to death, because that's what the military does to its soldiers. And that's why we have such a high soldier rate per day dying. Speaking of military engagement into making people more retarded through the use of parasites, and I say the word retarded because that's literally the words in these medical journals. They don't want you saying these words or knowing these words. So they usually make it PC that you can't say these words, but those are the words that are in medical journals describing what's happening. Through the use of parasites, they are hindering the human process. Hindering the human process means they are retarding something, okay? They are making something not be able to work. I go over healing the symptoms known as autism, but really, I want everyone just to check out Andreas Caliker's and Jim Humble's work on chlorine dioxide to also just like get rid of this in a easier protocol. But either one are great ways to get rid of these parasites that cause mental illnesses. We know parasites have the ability to change behavior, both for the worse and the better. Toxoplasmosis gondii is the main reason that causes people to commit suicide, actually. So it's behavior changing to the point of suicide. Toxoplasmosis is gondii is the cat parasite that causes rage, suicide attempts, and schizophrenia. You think that you're hearing voices? Do a parasite cleanse. Yes, they might very well be your angels talking to you and your gift to God, or they could be a heavy metal parasite from a different star system that's trying to take over your body. So what I'm saying is, if you hear people talking to you, do a real parasite. Like you can do low dose things like oxy powder pills and wormwood. That's great ways to start a real parasite cleanse, but you're going to want to move to heavier hitting things like carbon 60 or chlorine dioxide or hydrogen peroxide or ozone. Later on, a lot of people do stage 1 things once and they're like, I'm good. And it's like, oh no, that's what I take for people to get ready to do the bigger cleanses. So don't listen to the voices in your head until you've done a cleanse, because a lot of people don't hear voices in their head after a cleanse. Heck, you might even flush down a Pleiadian for all you know. Listen to your, heck, I would say stomach, but there's so many parasites in your stomach. You don't want to listen to that chakra until it is cleansed of bugs, technically. Let's go back to the cassette. Okay, if anyone has time, enter in vocal cord parasite MGSV onto YouTube. This is an amazing fiction piece of work that is about 26 minutes long, and it explains every time the vocal cord parasite is talked about on a video game. It explains that humans were given a parasite in Babylon. The parasite itself is called a vocal cord parasite, and it's basically the human language. The English language is the parasite. I don't give a fuck about English. I mistype everything. I don't care about this stupid little spell because slaves love it. Slaves of the language love the language. That's why they are called grammar Nazis. Very interesting. But anyway, this vocal cord parasite that was given to humans in Babylon gives them the ability to be traced and mind controlled all through the CIA's work with this parasite. And it goes into the CIA using this parasite, and it goes into children being used by military groups to fight. And it's a really interesting fiction story about how a parasite is given to the human race to be enslaved by CIA through an ancient Babylonian program. And it does give the people who have the parasite rage. And if you go to the stream boards that are talking about it, they are like, hey, is this parasite causing the people who have it mental retardation? Like, it's a known thing if you know the game. And the creator of the game is a very interesting person to look into. And oh yeah, I've also looked up the real science of the game, and there's actual real science to what they explain does for the parasite. And your character smokes a wormwood tobacco pipe throughout the game, which kills the parasite. And that's also the step one journey of my Beyond the Biohacking. If you don't know already, go to my link tree, Beyond the Biohacking. This is where you can look up how to get started on your very own parasite cleanse. And if you have any mental problems, unclarity in the vision department, disability department, you might want to check some of these out. I start off with herbs, dewormers, and then I go into oxidizers. I'm going to move up a step 3 video. It's actually this one. This is basically step 3. It's just using carbon to clean up after a cleanse because there is a little bit of oxidation damage and it is kind of like a dead battlefield. So, yeah, it's a very fun topic that we go over. Anyway, I will be updating that. However, just realize that there are parasites that can cause autism, ADHD. Actually, I would totally say there was no such thing as autism or ADHD before in an uninfected person. I don't think it can even be done. So where do we get these parasites from? They've always been used. We know that vaccines are the virus encapsulated, put into your body. They give us some bullshit reason that we can fight it off better. No, that's the way the mafia works. When you let in a vampire, that's all that you need to allow vampires to be let in, and they can bring in their friends, and they're not going to kill their friends when the friends do come in because they have an in through the vaccine. That's literally how the mafia and how parasites work. So they also give the bugs heavy metal. And the heavy metal doesn't know where to go because there's no place to place it. So it just gets placed in your synapses and you can't remember, you can't make mental connections because those connections are clogged with heavy metals. And if you ask current deathsters or doctors, they're the leading cause of death. The third leading cause of death in the world are called doctors. So if you ask them, how do I heal from this? They're going to say, you don't got no bugs. And you're going to be like, how do you know I don't have any bugs? And they're going to be like, let me check your poop. And you're going to be like, what? I'm going to bring in my nasty poop sample. And you're going to say that you don't see any bugs, even though there's no bugs in my poop, unless it's the fucking full moon, which is when your biofilm, which runs through your intestine, releases the bugs. And when it is a full moon, that is when you can check if you have a parasitic infection. Now, I have gotten all the pictures. You guys don't understand that when someone passes their first bug, they get really excited and they send me pictures. So I know my shit when it comes to this subject, okay? And I have seen hundreds and hundreds of pounds of bugs coming out of people. So I know that each of us carry, and I've done it myself. You know, when you like lose your weight, girls, women out there, you lose your weight, you've been working out, you've been dieting, you look good everywhere except that little pouch. Even women who haven't had kids, right above our hoo-ha, right below our tummy, like if it sticks out, no matter how skinny you are, that means you're full of bugs, and that's where they live. And they are living, there are 5 to 15 pounds of bugs just sitting in your lower intestine, eating all of your nutrients. So when you go to try to be healthy and listen to those influencers on TikTok and me, when you listen to us and you go to just change your diet, you're giving those nutrients to parasites if you haven't first done a cleanse of parasites. Some people aren't even ready to do the cleanse of parasites until they kill their blood parasites, which is why I have 3 steps to cleansing. Take it slow, take it easy. It's not an operation. The biggest thing that all of these videos I talk about, Flowers for Algernon, Idiocracy, and Limitless all have in common is, well, the operation in Flowers for Algernon, let's say they just operated and removed all the bugs they saw. That's the only thing I could imagine, is that they cleaned him out. They don't explain what the operation was, but if you were to open up someone and literally just clean them out with pipe cleaners in the medical sense and get rid of all the heavy metal and stuff, you would be able to physically clean out stuff. I don't like that. That sounds horrible. That would probably cause aneurysms and heart attacks, but it's a fictional movie, so I'll forget about it. In Idiocracy, they're using the depopulation agenda of literally giving people parasites so that they can't have kids at a later stage in life when they're ready to raise smart kids without behavioral problems. And they are more likely to have kids and be single parents that listen to the health care of doctors. The doctors are going to get those kids put on vaccines, whereas if you have a full family unit, you would have people who are already looked into all of this stuff I'm showing you right now, and they kind of understand that we wouldn't use vaccines to get rid of anything. And for anyone who's going, oh my God, but smallpox was killed by the vaccine. No, sweetie. Look up chlorine dioxide kills Draculonius parasite. Yeah, you'll realize that they could have just given chlorine dioxide to the people who had all these plagues that we get vaccines for, and they would have just been able to drink something, and then they wouldn't have had the plague, and then they wouldn't have had smallpox. Everyone who's like, but my cats need to get, no, oh, I'm looking for an animal. That's going to be the hardest thing, looking for an animal who is not vaccinated and its parents are not vaccinated. Like, you don't need to give animals vaccines at all. Look up every single thing that you give an animal vaccine for. The herpes, the blah, 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 blah. Now look up chlorine dioxide inhibits the parasite that causes that disease that they are making a vaccine for. And you will realize that chlorine dioxide literally kills, and hydrogen peroxide and ozone have clinical studies that prove they kill everything we take vaccines for. So no, literally you don't fucking need vaccines. You need to reverse your vaccines. And the way you do that is through heavy metal and parasite cleansing, which is why I'm pushing so hard the idea of biohacking your body, which is very similar to detox, which is very similar to all these other things people are talking about right now. It's basically just getting your body free of worms and heavy metals that aren't needed and replace it with good gut genome. What is it called? Biome and enzymes. I love enzymes. So get your fermented foods that you enjoy. Put the good bacteria back in your body. I like HCl enzyme supplements. Those are my favorite for putting good worker bees in our stomachs, and while killing the bad things in us. Replenish the good, take out the bad. Make sure you have enough magnesium, potassium, iodine, and best of luck. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. The next video is going to be a really, really fun one. It is literally the zombie apocalypse that we are amongst, and using the zombie movies that we see all over in real life to describe how we are seeing a real life zombie apocalypse happen right now. So I'll see you in that one. Have a good one.